Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Ete with another episode of The Company Next Door. I'm here today at the shop of the local store, Wigglish, with Amy. Amy, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. She might be a little nervous. I didn't give her any heads up what we're going to talk about, and so I said just show up and we're going to do an interview. So we'll see how this goes. But let me back it up. This last week's been kind of funny. If you've been following the show, I've interviewed lawn care company, a digital marketer. I've been hypnotized and interviewed the local Wasatch Hypnotherapy. It just keeps continuing. A CPA, and so here I am at Wigglish, and I get to interview the owner of a toy store, which is like every kid's dream, is to own his toy store. Let me ask you this. I got to start with this. The name. You have the best name in the whole valley. I've always been in companies that have kind of boring names, and so it's like Wigglish. Where'd you come up with that?
So Wigglish is actually from the book The BFG by Roald Dahl. Mm-hmm. And in it, the giant tries to exclaim, "I speak English," but what he really yells is, "I speak Wigglish." And as a former librarian and children's librarian, I was just smitten with the word and realized that there was no other choice. If we were going to be a toy store, we had to be Wigglish.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I was just like, man, I need to own something that allows me to have fun with a name. So you mentioned you were a librarian. Yeah,
I worked as a children's librarian when I lived in New York, and absolutely loved it. Best job ever. And just, developed a real love of children's literature and the way it can enhance children's lives.
That's awesome. So as we were setting up and talking, you've traveled around. You've lived and traveled to different places. You love to travel. So let's go back and tell us a little bit about your story. Where did you come from? And walk us through kind of how you ended up here in Heber Valley.
Well, let's see. I grew up moving all over the place. My dad was a civil engineer, and we moved wherever the next big project was. And so I've lived in 2 states and overseas twice. About 12 years ago, I was living in the Bay Area with my former spouse and our 3 kids, and I realized that maybe it was time to go to a smaller town while my kids were in their teenage years and do that. So we moved to Utah, and Utah dollars, or California dollars, buy a lot of Utah house.
They do.
So
you did good here.
so we bought this enormous house, but only had 3 kids. And so my husband and I decided we'd start selling stuff online. And, well, what do I know but children's stuff, because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And we had recently returned from a year-long stint in Paris, France.
Awesome.
And I realized that there was a real shortage of the quality toys that you could get there here. Here you just had, your options at the mainstream buy box stores, at big box stores. And I thought, well, why not see if we can sell some of those specialty things online that I bought when I was overseas and I know a lot about. So we started selling specialty children's toys in, 11 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago. And the very first Christmas, well, actually, we started at Valentine's Day, and we sold $500 worth of specialty Valentines from really high-end stationers. And we were like, wow, that's amazing. We're doing this out of my basement. So
I love it.
Then we started to hire people, and we hired a college student who had been an eBay professional.
Oh, cool.
And she set us up on Amazon. And our first Christmas, we did $75,000, and we're just floored.
Yeah, that's...
holy crap, what is even going on? And we started to do that, and we got quite large online, and realized that we really, we had, this is a terrible beginning, but we actually had all these overstock items that we needed to deal with. And so we decided to open a store. So originally, we were just an outlet store. So we were Wigglish Warehouse.
In Heber?
In this location,
okay, in this building, which makes sense. Yeah, it's a big building.
So we were just selling items that we had overstock of or couldn't go in sell because of box damage, etc. And that was okay, but it wasn't very fun. And so I started buying stuff specifically for Heber. And it definitely ceased becoming an outlet store, and I really found what I love doing, which is buying quality children's products and bringing them in here. So everything in here is hand-selected based on reviews and, durability. But that's how Wigglish got started.
So do you know, you said you started buying toys for Heber. How did you know what people in Heber want? How do you go about knowing that?
I don't. I have to admit, I just really like shopping. I am an expert shopper.
So you turn your skill in shopping into a business. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm really good at shopping. And so instead of, buying things for myself and my children that we don't need, I started buying, specialty children's toys and started going to the toy markets all over the U.S. and the various trade shows so I could learn about all these different types of products and figure out, okay, this is the type of toy that you find at Walmart and this is the type of toy you don't.
Gotcha.
And what the big differences are, and really focused on the quality toys where less is more. What I wanted was a store that had fewer toys but better options.
Yeah.
Things that fostered, creative play, but weren't necessarily something that would end up in the trash in a week.
Gotcha. So higher quality, maybe more unique.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were overseas in France, and I think were there toys over there that we weren't commonly playing with here? The reason I ask is I just did an interview with Katie from Expedition Flags. She started a balance bike company about 14 years ago here. She was hiking in Germany, I think, and saw a little German kid with a balance bike. She had never seen one here. So she was like, oh, I got to bring that to America. Was any part of that in your story?
Oh, yeah. There were definitely toys that, I realized I had sitting in my home here that you had no access to in the U.S. And so I started looking for U.S. distributors of those products and reaching out to those companies. Because they were the type of toys that were heirloom toys. We weren't going to give them away. We weren't going to throw them away. Or if, we were going to give them away to somebody special. Yeah. These were not, Happy Meal toys. These were toys that were really nice quality and my children had really enjoyed. And so I started looking at, specific companies, wooden toy manufacturers from Germany, things like that.
Okay, cool. So when you were in France, did you have kids at the time?
Yeah, I actually had a 3-year-old and a newly adopted 1-year-old from China.
Really?
Yes.
Did you adopt that 1-year-old over there in France? Or?
No, we actually postponed our move overseas so we could have U.S. residency. Okay. And within a week of adopting her, moved to France.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, quite the adventure.
Yeah, and what was the reason for going to France?
My former spouse worked for Google at the time and was a junior executive, and we were just lucky enough to get an assignment overseas.
That's awesome. Did that have any impact on, you said it was a 3-year-old, so obviously very young at that age, but was there any impact spending a year there?
Honestly, just the travel experiences were amazing because they weren't in school. We could at any weekend go visit 3 different countries.
Yeah.
And I think in a 1-year period, we went to 17 different countries.
That's awesome.
On 3 different continents, and just realized there's so much of the world to see, and having children didn't inhibit us at all.
I feel the same way. I travel the world with my kids. I just think it's important for them to see what's out there.
Oh, yeah.
The cultures, the toys, the food, all that.
Yeah, and nothing makes you appreciate home more than, realizing what life is like somewhere else. And also, just appreciating that every part of the world has something fabulous about it. You just have to discover it and be willing to find it.
That's awesome. So we're in Heber. You've got this toy store. It was a factory, and then you decided to open up a store. And then you didn't have any algorithm or anything that told you what toys to get.
No.
You're just like, oh, I like this one. This is fun.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of trial and error in that process?
There's a lot of trial and error.
Did you have a room full of the error, or how does that work?
I just close the errors out.
You get smarter?
Or give them away, or,
Gotcha.
Or find people who want them. What I learned is that I really... As much as I love the super high-end, wooden German toys, there's not necessarily a market in Heber for that.
Sure.
Utah parents tend to be quite young, whereas I came to parenting in my 30s, and so my price point was different than
right, because they're younger, they're not so much set up in their careers.
Exactly.
Yeah, they can't spend $100. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so I had to be a little more sensitive than I would normally be to the price points of products, but I've still tried to stick with products that you just can't find at a Walmart.
So what's to you, you're shopping. I'm going to bring in some new toys. Can you tell me about that process? Do you have a day a week that you just sit through the web and look for toys, or how do you go about doing that?
I go to a lot of trade shows. The best one is the New York Toy Fair, which of course was canceled. Well, no, it wasn't canceled this year, but was diminished.
Gotcha.
But I go there, spend about a week going through maybe thousands of booths, looking at products from thousands of different manufacturers.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, talking to them about, why their product is better than another product, whether it's a magnetic toy or paper dolls or, a particular type of race car. I want the ones that are going to be the most durable, that are going to have, the most qualitative fun.
So you really care about what you're bringing home.
Absolutely. There's almost nothing in the store that I wouldn't bring home to my own house, and I'm very particular.
So there's this Amy standard. It's like, so you're in this trade show in New York, and there's thousands of booths, and so probably millions of toys, and you've got to narrow it down to the handful or whatever that you want to bring in. What passes the test for you? Is it like, do you have to feel it, hold it? I guess I'm wondering, what are some of the thoughts? And you're going,
I do.
What classifies this for coming home to Heber, and now you don't make it?
My fundamental rule is, how quickly would this end up in the garbage or the DI if I brought this into my house with my children?
Gotcha.
And if it's a product that I can see, living in my house for multiple years and then finding a nephew or a niece to pass it on to, that's a winner toy. If it's a toy that as a mother I am frustrated with and makes too much noise and breaks, and within 3 weeks is garbage, I wouldn't even consider bringing it in.
So I'm a parent. I have a 10-year-old tomorrow and a 2-year-old. And I love this conversation because the other side of it is just waste in general as a society.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we struggle because I never actually thought about this to this moment, but we bring in so much junk. We get we're trying to become minimalists, and the more we try, the more junk shows up. But you're right. It's like half of them are just toys that we collect from a Walmart shop. Oh, I shouldn't say that. From a big box shopping.
Yeah.
From a Happy Meal. I don't know where, but I look at them like, what is this? Like, why is this taking up space in my house? And so you're saying that's your first thing you look at is you want to help parents. You want to solve that problem. So when something comes in the house, it's valuable.
It's valuable.
And they love it.
It's less is more. It's something that the child comes back to again and again and again and, plays with in different ways, whether it's, a giant Frisbee, which turns into an obstacle course item, which turns into a summer tent, which turns into something you splash water on. Toys that can do more than one thing through creative play are where it's at.
Okay.
Toys that are just, it just does this thing, are really, they're short-lived. Kids, and they don't really offer kids the opportunity to be creative. And, I think that the creativity of a child should never be underestimated.
I always talk about that.
Like they can be happy with a cardboard box.
Yeah.
And all I want to do is provide the best cardboard boxes out there that are going to inspire them.
So how do you balance that? Because in 2020, the toys are so crazy, right? Like electronics and gadgets. I mean, toys are insane. And how do you balance that? Do kids come in here and they want that and they're going, no, I don't want this, Mom.
They really do, and it is a struggle. I've kind of had to draw the line at anything electronic. I have a few remote control cars.
Interesting.
But, in general, I really think that they have access to plenty of electronics elsewhere. That's not what I want to provide. I want to provide the building set that they're going to, create with. Or the art set or the project that they're going to talk with their mom or dad about and be so proud of what they've created and then build something new. But it's true. Like I have a hard time with that 10-year-old boy is a hard sell because I don't have Fortnite accessories or Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
And so we just have to explain, we've had these other options.
So have you had to turn down revenue because of
Absolutely.
Because of your belief in wanting a higher quality, better toy?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you could easily start selling Pokemon cards.
Yeah. There's thousands of products that I could bring in that would sell in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I don't really stand behind them. And it's not that they don't have their place.
Sure.
Everybody. I don't mind Pokemon cards if my son is bored and we're driving in the car and he's looking at them. That's great. Yeah. But I don't want that to be what I represent as I'm encouraging people to, take their parenting responsibilities to kind of the next level. And, just like when you're buying a new car, you're looking at all the features. Look at a toy the same way. Look at how it's going to, what the longevity is, what the quality of it is, where it's made. If a child puts it in their mouth, what does it do? Is there, there breakable parts? Anyway, so I just really care that what I sell here are things that last.
That's awesome. Sounds like there's a lot more going into to bringing toys in than I had thought of in advance. How many different SKUs or toys do you carry at an average day?
Oh gosh, I probably have products from 1,000 different vendors in the store. So it varies. I'm pretty low right now, but around Christmas, that number could go up to 1,500.
Wow. So did you always set out to be? I mean, it sounds like you didn't always set out to own a toy store.
No,
I mean,
no.
did you go to college?
Yeah,
for being a toy store.
I have a super useful degree, a degree in journalism with an emphasis in print media.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really good at writing newspaper articles in pyramid style.
Well,
Not super useful.
not too relevant anymore. Yeah.
But I did really have a passion for children. And when I became a mother, I just realized that, everything that can influence them that I have control over, I should do my best at.
Yeah.
And, from the quality of the clothes they wore, maybe they had less, but they weren't going to fall apart,
Yeah.
to, the toys they played with and the books they read. Even the books they read, I didn't want to get the ones that had, the cartoon characters they see on TV.
Right.
I wanted books with great stories.
Yeah.
So they would love to read. And I wanted toys that they would like, oh, Mom, I want to keep that for my own kids. And, those are the toys I love.
It's almost like you just want the classic stuff, the stuff that just is timeless.
Yeah.
Not that it's popular right now. Like looks like you got the Giving Tree. I see some of your books over there. Yeah, I read all those as a kid.
Yeah,
and I read those to my kids. So yeah.
Yeah, all of we added books because I couldn't resist not adding books.
Good.
And every book is hand selected because it's got a great message. It has lyrical storyline and words. There's something about the book that I know as a parent makes it particularly engaging for children.
Man, I love this.
And that's what our kids need is stuff that engages them. That's a person or an idea, not an electronic.
I love this. So let me ask you this, because, I mean, obviously with all the changes over the last 15 years, I mean, when I was a kid, Toys R Us was the best thing in the world. That's okay. She's just taking a sip of her drink for those of you who can't see us if you're just listening. But anyway, so Toys R Us, you go to Toys R Us, it was the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. I remember there was this one day when I was little that my mom there's 5 children in the family I grew up in. She took us to Toys R Us and we all got to pick out one thing. And I got the Easy Bake Oven.
Oh, I love the Easy Bake.
And
I wanted one so bad.
I cannot tell you how much joy and years of fun that Easy Bake Oven brought us. And Toys R Us is fabulous. Because it gets you lots of options, but some of the options are questionable. You just have to look with open eyes. They do carry great products, though.
But they're out of business now.
True.
So,
yeah.
and where I'm going with this is the sad part of the conversation, but we'll get back to the fun part. Amazon, all these things that have changed. How do you keep people coming? How do you let people know it's important to come to the shop and hold the toys and see the toys? How do you get that message out there?
One of the things we kind of pride ourselves on is knowing about every item on the shelf. And a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle can come in and say, okay, I have a 7-year-old girl who absolutely loves architecture. And we can say, great, let's see what we can find that can foster that can encourage her to think creatively, maybe something that has to do with, geometry that helps her build. We really like to think that we can, place something for every child who comes in.
That's awesome. So you've got experience and you've got knowledge of the product. So someone can come in, you can point them in that direction. Mm-hmm. Which, you can't get that online, and I'll spend hours and hours just starting for one thing and then end up all the way over here.
Mm-hmm. And I do read reviews online because I want to know if a toy breaks after 2 months of play before I order it. Yeah. And so it's actually useful to me to look online at products as well because I want to know how they last.
Sure. So how do you went to school, journalism, you became a mother, traveling, parts of the world, and you're here now in Heber. How do you do the business side? Because you're running a company, and toys is that's just a part of it. That's sometimes a small part.
It's actually probably about 2% of our of our gross revenue. But it's the fun part of work. It's the part that I feel the most passionate about and that I would spend all my time on if I could. Fortunately, I have an absolutely amazing staff. Susan here in the store is the heart of Wigglish. She remembers every child's birthday, notices when they get their braces off or their cast off, and it can be 3 years between when she sees them, and she'll say, "You got this for your birthday, and your favorite color is this." And I cannot imagine having Wigglish without Susan. And then our team upstairs who work on the online part basically enable it so that I can spend as much time here as I'm able to.
So you've got a good team, a good staff.
Absolutely. The other thing is that everybody here is a mom. So we all know what it's like we all get excited when new things come into the store. It's Christmas every time we get a box. We all come down and we look at it and we think of who we know that this would be great for. And usually it gets purchased by one of us before it even hits the shelf.
That's funny. So basically your team just buys everything. That's how you pay the bills.
Well, they buy one of the 6 we order.
That's awesome. Huh. So what about the finances? What about the logo, the LLC? What about all that parts? I mean, you didn't go to school for business. So how did you learn how to run a business, how to build a business? It's one thing to, obviously you had to figure out how to buy toys, and I'm sure and we've talked about it, there's a whole process and a system for that. But how did you figure out how to, start a company and run accounting and manage teams and HR and all these things if you didn't go to business school? You had no experience in this.
I had no experience in this and actually came from a pretty sheltered background. Lived in a big house with a housekeeper, no limit on my spending whatsoever. And then here I am, suddenly divorced, in charge of a business, parenting 3 children on my own.
Awesome.
And honestly, it was a really steep learning curve. And I could not have done it again without my staff. We all just sat down and said, we are going to make this company work, because we were very close to having to close, shutter our doors. And we cut back incredibly. We let people go, which hurt.
Yeah.
And we really focused on the elements that were profitable but that we still believed in. And tried to mesh the two as much as we possibly could. We joke that we all take turns being HR or, payroll or, the insurance expert. And the truth is we just, everybody pitches in as much as they possibly can, because we're kind of a family.
That's awesome. You just kind of lean on each other and just figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, there has yet to be a problem that we found insurmountable. Even with the COVID-19, the day that Wasatch County was declared a disaster area, we were applying for a PPP loan. We were extremely fortunate to, be following all the trends and all the information to be able to take advantage of that and keep our doors open.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, but it's thanks to our staff who was, scouring newspaper articles and SBA websites to figure out, what was the earliest possible second we could do those things. And the same goes with, virtually every other project we've taken on.
So when you had the Wigglish existed before the divorce?
Yes, yeah.
So I'm assuming then this staff kind of helped you through that as well.
They really did. The great thing is all I felt was support. And the biggest thing they supported me in doing was letting me be a mom. At the time of the divorce, I had a 12, 10, and 8-year-old who required up to 13 carpools a day. And, that sounds like crazy, but that was the actual truth. Okay, 3 different schools every morning, 3 different schools after school, piano, soccer, dance, all gymnastics, everything, times 3. And what they let me do was work when I could work. Wow. And we're, oh, no problem. Amy's a mom today, and we'll just text her at home. And
that's awesome.
And they've been fabulous. I mean, and had I not been able to be a mom at the same time, I couldn't have done it.
Wow. Sounds like a great team you got here.
Yeah. I think it's a 4-way marriage. The way we all feel about each other.
That's awesome. So tell me this, what are some of your favorite toys? I mean, you got me thinking now. When I was a kid, there was this line called Discovery Toys, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where my mom got them, but they were, I think you would carry that type of toy. They weren't common. My friends didn't have them, but they had great games. There was a marble thing we could set up and drop them. I forget what it was called. Anyway.
Discovery Toys still exists.
Discovery Toys, yeah.
It was purchased by one of the big brands, possibly Mattel. I follow all the toy companies change hands remarkably frequently. It seems like there's a lot of great invented toys, and then they get snatched up by another company, and then that company gets bought by another company. So I'm often chasing down a particular product because the person I first bought it from no longer has it, and then I follow the rounds till I find out who currently sells it. Some of my favorite products, there's a brand called Ann Williams. She makes super high quality crafting kits that the end results are so beautiful you would put them on your dining room table, but not so hard that a 6-year-old can't do them, and not full of glitter and unicorns, but just really lovely items. Another product line I've just brought in is Playmobil, which is similar to Lego, decades old German brand. And while I don't love plastic toys, these are the exception. Incredibly high quality, and something I bought for my own children. Actually, when we lived overseas, the big doll house and with all the accessories, and something that we passed on to a niece who now loves it.
That's awesome. So why don't you like plastic toys?
I'm not opposed to plastic toys if they're well made. But I think that you have to be very careful. There's a lot of sharp edges. They break easily. There's chemicals in them that you just don't want your child to have. If you give a toy to a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old, it's going in their mouth. And you want to make sure that what goes in their mouth isn't going to hurt them in any way. That includes buying, plush or stuffed animals that have embroidered eyes rather than button eyes, because it's a choking hazard. It includes, making sure that the dyes in it are not going to in any way be harmful.
I feel like I need to go home and inspect all my toys now. I have a 2-year-old. Maybe my wife, she probably puts more thought into it.
It even has to do with the thickness of a stuffed animal. You only want, a certain amount of thickness for an infant toy, but once they're 3+, you can go to a regular stuffed animal. But knowing that helps me to help parents buy things better, because I know a lot of information that they don't have, and that's why we love it when they come in and say, well, I've got a little boy turning 1. What do you have that he's going to just love? And
you're filtering in your mind. Okay, nothing chokeable, nothing. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of value. What have been what's one of the hardest things that you've been through over the past? How long has Wigglish been operating? Did you say?
We've been open for 8 years.
8 years here? Mm-hmm. Okay. What are some of the low points? We'll talk about the lows and the highs a little bit of just the business. What are some of the hard things that maybe some people could learn from?
Heber is a hard sell.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
In retail.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued to hear more about. I've thought that too, because it's an interesting demographic here.
Yeah.
And
one of the issues is that retail space is extremely hard to come by.
Yeah.
And we didn't just need retail space; we needed warehouse and office space, and literally have not been able to find any location since we started to move to be closer into town. So while you wouldn't expect a specialty toy store to be located between Fastenal and EWS, an electrical supply store, it's what fits our products. So we're out of the way. We're, not in a place you would ever expect us to find. So we don't get, accidental foot traffic. If you're coming to Wigglish, you have to know it's here. So getting the word out that we're here is probably our biggest challenge. We get people every week who come and say, I've been here for 20 years. I had no idea you were even here.
Wow.
And of course it stings a little, but we're delighted they're here.
But you're right. It's hard to get anything downtown the size and the requirements that you need. Mm-hmm. So that puts you outside of town just a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge.
One of the other challenges we have is that while we try to bring in really special items, you can find them online. Okay. You can find almost any product online at some point, and especially around Christmas, we have customers who want us to price match, and we're simply unable to do that.
Yeah, because you've got to pay to bring it here and hold it here and all that.
And we gift wrapped everything that comes in. It's complimentary.
Yeah.
We know about the products, so we do get disappointed customers who say, "Well, I can buy it here for 32% less," and we'll say, "You are free to buy that, but I'm happy to tell you why it's a great toy."
Yeah. Do you worry up at night about the future of retail?
I do.
Or do you have faith that, or not faith, do you have hope that people will come back around and start shopping local again and start seeing the value in paying a little more, but it's helping my neighbor, right? It's helping the community.
I think that the United States is in a very unique position right now. I think it was about 5 years ago that when people got online, it switched from Google being where they searched to Amazon. And that really scares me.
Yeah, because it's a store.
It's not even just a store, it's a monopoly.
Oh, okay, got it.
And I worry that, a store like mine, I can bring in lots of unique, wonderful items and hand sell you them and explain why they're valuable and offer a replacement if it breaks. But if we don't value the little stores like us,
Correct, yeah.
and if I don't get enough customers, if they automatically go to Amazon or other online venues, they're not going to have that option. They're not going to be able to see the toys in person. I mean, it'd be like buying a mattress online. Like, how hard is that? You want to try it out.
You can ask my sister
it.
that's running the camera. She went through mattresses a few years ago, left and right. She's buying them online. A new one showed up. You couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. I went to the local mattress shop owned by Jeff Collar, who I interviewed. Yep. Found the perfect mattress. Here I am 9 years later, and it's still amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we're really undervaluing, the knowledge that our community has.
Yeah,
and
that scares me.
I worry that, the small mom and pop shops just won't survive because we can't compete on price. All we can compete on is, customer service and our knowledge of the product and willingness to help. But until those things are truly valued,
right.
We don't know if we'll shutter or not.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That's why part of the reason I want to do this show is I want to show people what's happening locally and how important it is. When you spend $10 in your neighborhood, it stays here.
Absolutely.
It helps you, your team, who are members of our community, your family. And then it comes back, and then when you shop here, I mean, I'm hoping that's the future. I think some areas it's happening, but. It seems like we're at a point where it's going to go one way or the other. It's a little scary to me.
It is a little scary, but I think, if we just remind ourselves that our community really matters, we are so fortunate to live in such a beautiful, lovely place. But we kind of have to protect it, too.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that, we don't have, the only options are big box stores. We want to make sure that we appreciate our local restaurants and other venues that offer something really special.
Yeah, and you do, and I can sense it here just talking with you how much you care about what you're doing, and there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of care and love into each selection and finding a good fit for whoever walks in that door. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. What's some of the highlights for you and I think I might know the answer to this, but what are some of the points where you're like, I love this. I love the shop. What are the best parts?
Christmas is the best time of year ever. It is so fun to see people come in and their eyes are big, just like little kids. Okay, I'm looking for this, and we help them find, hopefully, the perfect thing that a child is going to open on Christmas morning and just be ecstatic with. It's amazing to feel like we are helping families create these wonderful memories. And, when parents come in with their kids, they'll bring them in for their birthday, and they get to pick out something. And you just get to see the wonder in their eyes, like, well, what about this, Mom? And what about this? And, I love it. Another of my favorites is when kids come in with the money they earned themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
And
they're holding it in their hand,
and
right?
they're holding it in a little Ziploc bag, and they're counting out their change. And I think what better lesson for kids to learn, like what is worth the money that they've, pulled weeds for or mowed lawns for, and then have to pay it themselves and then get the bag from me as they walk out the door and, have that step of maturity to, have earned the money for something and purchased it. I love it when kids do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just picturing my little daughter. If I brought her in here, she would lose her mind. She would be grabbing everything and terrorizing the place, but I can just see that smile.
You know what else is great, though? Even when kids throw tantrums here, we don't care because it's a learning experience for the kids. Kids have to know that no is okay. And when a mother picks their child up who's kicking and screaming and walks out, we're cheering her on, saying, good job. It's hard to be a parent. It really, really is. And, teaching a child how to act in a toy store is a hard thing. And we just really appreciate the parents who, take that seriously and say no to their children.
Wow. That's a good place to shop. What's something that you would share with someone else that's looking to get into business, starting their own company, maybe even a mother who's been divorced and has some kids and they've got an idea that they've been sitting on and maybe afraid to start a company? What's a piece of advice that you would give them, something you've learned along the way?
That's a really hard one.
Yeah, it is.
First, I would say two things. Choose something you're passionate about.
Okay.
So even when it's hard, you still enjoy it. And the second thing is surround yourself with people who lift you up and support your goals. And just having a team of employees and coworkers who have the same passion that I do makes every day great. Whether it's a great sales day or not a great sales day, it still makes it super enjoyable to come in, open those new boxes, and feel like it's Christmas.
Yeah. That's good advice. I love it. What do you hope for the future of Wigglish over the next few years? With new technologies, there might be ways to reach new audiences. Or is there anything that you're excited about right now as a business owner that you're foreseeing in the future? Or what do you hope to see in 10 years? What do you think?
I'm not sure. Right now, it's such a time of instability for businesses across the U.S. that I'm just hoping to stay in business.
Yeah, survival. Sure.
If I can keep my doors open and acquire more customers, I am very, very happy. And if I'm able to provide the types of toys that really help kids out and help families out, then that's successful to me. It's not monetary success I'm looking for. It's having a really great atmosphere and a resource where you can get something great.
Did you ever have a job where you didn't have that atmosphere? I'm just wondering why it's so important to you and how you were able to build it. Because did you work somewhere where everybody wasn't great to each other?
Well, I had your typical minimum wage jobs as a college kid, and they were pretty miserable. That's that shock of realizing I have to work 40 hours a week.
Yeah, for the rest of my life. Yeah.
And realizing that even if I work 80 hours a week now, I'm still really happy because I love what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen people who are really unhappy in their jobs. I realized that if I weren't fortunate enough to have this, I'd probably be in a job that I didn't love. And so I'm extra motivated to make it succeed.
Awesome. So I kind of want to, if you don't mind, I want to dig a little more. So there's a lot of divorce, and I know this is a business podcast, but that's part of its life. In my life, and everyone we know, there's that, and that's hard. There's a lot of hard things that come with it. And as I'm hearing your story, a mother of, it was three, of three, and, business owner, it's just inspiring to me, and it's really empowering and exciting. And I have a lot of friends who are going through something. So I wondered if we could take a second and speak to, you were married and it sounded like you worked for Google. So
yes.
You were in Paris. So there's good income there.
Yeah.
And you had to leave that. You had to make a decision to walk away from comfort, support, and to run a company on your own with your team. That must have been a dark and a hard time. Can you tell us how you navigated that and something you could speak to someone else who's listening that's going through something similar?
It was really, really hard. In 1 year, I lost $1 million. My dad died and I got a divorce. And my dad died at my home with me holding his hand.
And what year is this?
4.5 years ago.
Okay. So 16.
Yeah. Okay. In fact,
wow.
My dad was dying of cancer, and my marriage was not going well. And my spouse kept pushing you're either all in or you're all out, all in or all out. And I just kept saying, I need to get my dad. I need to let my dad die and cope with that. And he was not willing to wait for that. So after a particularly unpleasant counseling session, we decided we were getting divorced, and I went home. My parents were visiting me for Christmas. I took my mother and siblings aside and said, I'm sorry to tell you this, I am getting divorced. Please don't tell Dad. I don't want him to have to worry about this. And 4 hours later, he died at my home. And
around Christmas time.
Around Christmas time, about 2 days after Christmas. So, we waited for the ambulance. Fortunately, my whole family was in town from far away, and we were all able to convene at the hospital with him. And my family was nothing but supportive. The next morning, so we left the hospital about 4 a.m. We met at my house at 9:30 in the morning. One of my brothers showed up with $5,000 in cash.
Wow.
And said, this is for your divorce in case you need it, and I can get more. And this is a brother who doesn't have tons of money, but who just wanted to support me.
That's amazing.
And the entire time, all they wanted to do was help. They didn't badmouth my ex. They didn't say anything that would hurt my children. They just wanted to be supportive. And I was very, very afraid. I came from a very privileged lifestyle.
Yeah.
Overseas trips multiple times a year, housekeeper. If I want a new car, let's go to Sweden and buy one.
Wow.
You
had to walk away from that.
I had to walk away from that, and and leave the big house behind, and all the things that I'd taken for granted were suddenly just unbelievable. But my family stood by me. And, whether I was calling my mom at, 2 a.m. or my brother or my sister, they were just there to listen to me. And they didn't really give me advice. They just gave me courage.
Yeah. That's what you needed.
That's what I needed, because I was so scared. I thought, how am I going? I have never worked a career job in my life. My last job was as a children's librarian, and I can't afford to raise 3 children on a librarian's wage.
Sure, yeah.
That's ridiculous. Sorry about that.
That's okay. The air is coming on, guys, which is good. It's hot out there.
But they just stood by me, and through each new challenge, I'd say, Mom, what am I going to do about this? And she'd say, okay, take that to this sibling. Take that to this sibling. This is the one who's going to help you the best there.
Wow.
And it did. The other thing that helped is that my spouse and I, my former spouse and I, did everything we could to make it amicable. Okay. I never, ever wanted to do or say anything that would prevent my children from having a great relationship with both parents. And as such, he was welcome in my home anytime, because he moved away from Heber. And if he wanted to see the kids, they didn't have any place to hang out in Heber. So come to my house, I will leave. So he would come to my house, and I'd go out to dinner, or go shopping, or get my nails done, or go to a sister's house. Now he's about to get remarried, and the future partner is welcome too. I want my children to know that they are loved, regardless of the fact that their parents got divorced, and that whatever happens in their lives, both of their parents will stand by them.
Wow. One thing that really stands out as you tell that is it's almost like the business. You just had a team of support like you have here in your family, and it sounds like you just leaned on them.
Absolutely.
Just needed someone to talk to, and that was enough to carry you, because you are strong and you know what you're doing, but you just needed that extra.
I just really needed someone to tell me I could do it.
Yeah.
And that, the first time I filed taxes, you're going to figure this out, Amy. You can do this. Yeah. I mean, I got to be 44 years old and had never filed taxes.
Yeah, you never had to.
and let alone filing them for a corporation.
Yeah, not easy, yeah.
Not easy. I've bought a car on my own. I've done all sorts of things that I never thought I would be able to do. I'm often shocked at how much I've learned to do in the last 5 years that had never occurred to me. I didn't even know I wasn't doing them. That's how sheltered I was.
Yeah, because it was always done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I never had to worry about car insurance ever.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to get Wi-Fi signed up for my house. I mean, like, it sounds so dumb. And, like, I was such a naive person. But, you know, you live in this little bubble and you think life is perfect and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
And you realize that, like, you can really do it. You can really figure out how to do the hard things, and you just pick one hard thing at a time.
I love that. And so for any of you that are listening that are going through a similar thing, that's the message right there. You can do it. You pick one thing at a time and you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
It's all you can do, and you lean on those around you. Thank you for sharing. As winding down, what is something, well, we know you love toys and you know you love your kids. What's something, if it's a nice Saturday in July and you don't have to work, and you don't have to work on the house, you don't have to manage inventory, what are you doing? Where are we going to find you? What's fun?
Well, unlike most Utahns, I'm not particularly outdoorsy. Honestly, the best Saturday to me is spent sitting on my front porch reading, looking at Timpanogos.
Yeah.
I'm Swiss by heritage. I love the mountains here. I think that, you know, there's nothing prettier than snow-peaked mountains. Yeah. And it's just the most peaceful feeling to me to know that, like, all is well in the world. And whatever comes next, I can get through it.
Awesome. So for those of you listening, we're sitting with Amy from Wigglish. We're here at the shop in Heber, and we'll have a link to the website in the show notes. As you can tell, it's just a really neat story of a woman who started a business with her husband and then was divorced, but had built a great team and a great structure, and her team carried her through it, and she's run this shop and really has great quality toys. I'm looking around. There's no junk here. It's not the stuff that you buy. She's not pulling stuff that's just going to be thrown away. The first thing she looks at is it's going to end up in DY, right? She wants to buy toys that are going to pass down the generations, which I can appreciate that quality and that value. And just a great story. And again, if you have ideas and you want to get in the business, here it is. She had no business experience. She didn't go to college, and she's doing it. Figuring it out as we go along.
Yep, this is what you do with a journalism degree.
Yeah, there's your journalism degree. So, Amy, thank you for letting me drop by and share your story with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Company Next Door.